Hey everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. It was day 16 of Sean Diddy Combs' federal RICO trial. And today the jury experienced both extremes of the emotional spectrum. Dispassionate forensic evidence, some might say the boring stuff, from a digital expert who enhanced disturbing video for this case. And raw emotional testimony from a former insider who says Diddy once dangled her over a 17-story balcony. But beyond the drama, there is a legal strategy playing out here. The prosecution is building a case around racketeering, RICO, charges that are typically reserved for organized crime. At least that's what we've always come to know RICO for, right? Earlier today on my NewsNation show, I sat down with two men who know racketeering better than anyone. Sammy the Bull Gravano and Michael Franzese, former mobsters, one turned whistleblower. And I wanted to ask them one question. Does the Diddy case look like RICO to you? Their answers might surprise you. That interview is coming up a little later on in the episode. But first, let's break down what happened in court today. Before a single witness could even take the stand, the courtroom was already buzzing. Not about the evidence, not about the headlines, about a haircut. That's right, defense attorney Mark Agnifilo walked into court today with a fresh new do. And when asked about it, he said his wife made him cut it because he, quote, started to look like a hippie. But that light mood did not last long, because just moments later, the government got down to business, and they had receipts. The jury was shown a series of exhibits extracted from electronics that were seized during the March 25th Homeland Security raid on Diddy's Miami mansion. Sean Combs' iPhones, tablets, and laptops contained accounts connected to Diddy's companies and to himself. Some were labeled Bad Boy Worldwide, Combs Enterprises, and there was even a Snapchat handle called Puff Daddy. There was a Twitter profile under the name Diddy and an Apple ID account belonging to Combs, too. And then there were the text messages. In one exchange, Diddy asked his longtime bodyguard, D-Rock, to deliver a message to his, quote, shorty. In another, he pressed D-Rock for updates on Cassie, asking things like, are we broken up? What did she say? And even, stay on top of Cassie. But the most chilling moment came in a separate thread when D-Rock texted, quote, talking to Cass, I just gave her an ice pack. And Diddy replied, does the eye look better? After that, the prosecution called their first witness of the day, Frank Piazza. He's a forensic audio and video expert. He's the president of a company called Legal Audio Video, and he had one role, literally cutting through the digital noise. Piazza takes blurry and broken recordings and he makes them courtroom ready for a living. He authenticates, enhances, and explains the audiovisual elements that can make or break a case. And today he walked the jury through three specific types of footage: cell phone videos, surveillance recordings, and as he put it, quote, we'll call them sex videos, end quote. One of the recordings that Piazza authenticated was the infamous hotel video of Diddy savagely beating his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And can I just say, you always get the guy who authenticates videos and text messages. That's kind of standard operating procedure. You just get it on the record. But I think the added bonus of bringing Frank Piazza up on the stand for the prosecution, it's kind of obvious. They got to play this video again, over and over again for this jury, in case they forgot the guy they're dealing with, the guy who's sitting before them, the guy they're supposed to give the benefit of the doubt to, the guy they're supposed to ask, is this witness testifying about beatings that Diddy allegedly gave to Cassie? Is this witness telling the truth? And every time you see that video, you are reminded, oh, yeah, I guess he's capable of beating Cassie that badly. So that's important, right? Piazza said he had playback issues with this particular video, specifically something called a speed distortion, but that it wasn't, quote, manually altered. According to Piazza, that means that nobody slowed the video down, nobody sped the video up, nobody doctored the visuals in any way, shape, or form. Any glitches were because of a technical malfunction with the recording system itself, he testified. He also told the court that he did make some corrections, specifically adjusting the playback speed so that jurors could view it at a more natural pace. There was also some blurriness in the video, like pixelations, especially around Cassie, but Piazza said it wasn't any sort of editing. It was just a visual error in the file itself. And then Piazza told the jury about the sealed exhibits, the sex videos. According to Piazza, there were 10 sexually explicit videos in all, pulled from a profile labeled Frank Black on one of Cassie Ventura's old devices. Frank Black is a pseudonym that was linked to Diddy during earlier testimony. Piazza told the jury that the videos dated back to 2012 and 2014. And yes, they were graphic, he said. He told the jury he'd enhanced all 10 of them, including the audio on one of them. And then it was time for witness number 2 of the day. And this one was a big one, a big witness for the prosecution. Her name is Bryana Bongolan. She was next up on the witness stand. She actually goes by her nickname, Bana, who is a close friend of Cassie Ventura, nicknamed Bana. She testified today under an immunity deal. And she said she did not want to be there. I always like this because if you have an immunity deal, it means you need protection from being prosecuted, right? Because you may have committed crimes. And so if you're looking for a RICO conspiracy, a racketeering conspiracy, you need people in the organization committing crimes, people in the enterprise. So it's important when you hear somebody says, I need immunity. And this lady needed immunity. She testified that she saw the darkest sides of Diddy. And what she described on the stand was raw, it was graphic, and it was unforgettable. And it sounds a lot like a plot in a mob movie. You may have heard about Bana. The stories have been circulating ever since the trial began, and even before then. There was this allegation about Diddy dangling a woman over a 17-story balcony. But we didn't hear a lot more, right? We didn't hear because there's gag order, and we couldn't get to those who would be able to tell us until today. This is the kind of stuff that people remember. It's the kind of stuff that makes headlines. And it's the kind of stuff that the jury remembers. Like, it's a real graphic image, you know. And if it makes you think, wow, that sounds really mobster, all the better for the feds, right? The defense only has one option here. Well, kind of relatively one option. They've got to try to get the jury to believe she's lying. This crime didn't happen. Because if the crime happened, and then it can be linked to this whole enterprise, well, that's RICO, right? So Bana testified that Cassie's relationship with Diddy was like, quote, volatile. Highs, lows, love, and violence. And Bana told the jury that she spent a lot of time at Cassie's LA apartment. She said they partied and they did a lot of drugs, including weed and coke and ketamine. Bana admitted that the drugs became a real habit for her and that she would often buy them and supply them. She said she bought them for Cassie, and she told the courtroom that she also bought them for Diddy. Remember that, because if she's committing crimes within the enterprise, that could be considered RICO, right? Her circle of friends included some familiar names. Mia, that's the pseudonym for Diddy's former assistant who testified earlier this week. Carrie Morgan, another friend of Cassie's, referred to in earlier testimony. Deontay Nash, a stylist who also testified earlier. And a guy named Rob Holliday, somebody Bana says was a best friend. But Bana told the jury that her opinion of Diddy from the get-go was confirmed after a disturbing moment that she witnessed while she was on a shopping trip with Cassie in April of 2016. She testified that Cassie got a text from Diddy listing every single place that they had been that day. Bana read it and thought, quote, oh, wow, he really knows where we're at, end quote. And it got worse. Bana told the jury that she often slept over at Cassie's and that Diddy would sometimes show up in the middle of the night pounding on the door. She said she didn't know how he gained entry, but that Cassie never called the police. Sometimes Cassie acted like it was normal. Other times, she said Cassie looked scared. One night, Bryana said she was asleep on the couch when she woke up to Diddy banging on the door again. Cassie came out of her room and Diddy stormed in furious, she said. Bryana told the jury Diddy grabbed a knife and threw it at Cassie, and that Cassie threw it back. Nobody was hit by the knife, nobody was hurt, and Bryana said Diddy left shortly after that. If this sounds like a strange encounter, you're not alone. Bryana admitted she couldn't remember everything from that incident and said that she may have been high. But one thing she says she does remember, that Cassie didn't call the police, and neither did she. Because Bryana said, quote, "I was just scared of Puff." Not just because of that incident, but because of everything she'd witnessed up to that point. Bryana told the jury that the first time she saw Cassie visibly injured was during a FaceTime call the night of the premiere for the movie The Perfect Match. That's a movie Cassie was starring in. Bryana said Cassie had a black eye that night. And Bryana said she saw other bruises over the years, but that she eventually stopped asking Cassie questions. Bryana also described moments where she felt threatened by Diddy. One of those moments was at a beach photo shoot. Cassie was with a photographer friend named Bad Boy, spelled B-O-I, and no connection to Bad Boy Records. Diddy wasn't even at the photo shoot, but Bryana said he was in the beach house nearby. She testified that Diddy suddenly turned on her and, quote, "He said some stuff like, 'I'm the devil and I'm going to kill you,' end quote." Bryana admitted that she had no idea what triggered Diddy and didn't know if he was high, but she said that the drugs that she was on gave her just enough confidence to seem calm, even though she was terrified inside. But then things between Diddy and Bryana got worse. The most terrifying moment of Bryana's life didn't happen in a studio or a club or on a beach or in a back alley. She said it happened on a balcony, 17 stories up. Bryana told the jury it was early morning, September 2016, at Cassie's apartment in Los Angeles. She was asleep on the couch with her girlfriend when suddenly there was violent pounding on the front door. She said it was Diddy. Bryana said she felt an immediate wave of panic and woke up her girlfriend, who was also staying over. She says she pushed her girlfriend into the guest bathroom to protect her and whispered, "Shh." Then she told the jury that she walked out to the balcony and tried to look casual. She says she grabbed a joint but couldn't remember if it was lit or if she was about to light it, but that it didn't matter. Bryana said that all of a sudden Diddy was behind her. She told the jury, quote, "He basically came up from behind me. He lifted me up and then put me on the top of the rail," end quote. Bryana showed the jury how it happened. She demonstrated it. How Diddy allegedly grabbed her under the armpits and physically hoisted her so that her feet were on the top of the railing. Just let that sink in for a moment. Like seriously, try to picture it. 17 stories up, and you're essentially dangling with just inches that could mean the difference between life and death. It's important to know that Bryana said she weighed around 100 to 115 pounds at the time, and that she was only about 5 feet or so. So, logistically, could that happen? She did say that Diddy was bigger, and she said that the railing only came up to about waist height as well. She told the jury that she started pushing back against him, bracing herself and trying not to slip. She said that Diddy was yelling and screaming, quote, "You know what the fuck you did." Bryana said that all she could think about was the fact that she was about to fall 17 stories to the pavement. As if dangling off a balcony isn't insane enough, Bryana said she had no idea what Diddy was talking about. She told the jury, quote, "I had no idea, and I still have no idea." Bryana said that she looked back at Diddy and shouted, "I don't know what the fuck I did." But Bryana said that Diddy kept yelling and kept her perched on that 17-story ledge for about 10 to 15 seconds. Long enough to hear him repeat the same phrase over and over, "You know what the fuck you did." And then she says he threw her right into the balcony furniture. At first, she wasn't sure how bad she was injured after landing on the furniture, she said. But then she testified that she heard a voice, Cassie's voice, saying, quote, "Did you just hang her over the balcony?" Then another voice rang out. Somebody said, quote, "Her girlfriend's in the house," a reference to the girlfriend who was still in the guest bathroom. Bryana said that's when Diddy left, and that she herself immediately went back to her own apartment. She said she did not cry or call the police, but she testified that her neck and her back hurt. And when she looked down at her leg, she said she saw the bruise, and it was big, red, and angry, with what appeared to be a puncture or an indentation in the center of it, maybe from the furniture. She said she took a photo of it herself, and the jury was shown that image in court, and it had the same timestamp and date as the alleged incident. She told the jury that she was scared, but that she didn't feel the pain right away because she was on so many drugs. That moment actually became a huge turning point for her. She said that was the moment she decided to get sober. But the story didn't end there. Bryana told the jury that sometime later, she confronted Diddy on FaceTime. Not to fight, not to accuse. Instead, she said she just wanted to tell him, quote, "I don't want any problems with you," end quote. She testified that Diddy didn't say much, just sat there with his hands over his head, breathing heavily. And when asked why she didn't report what happened to the police, Bryana's answer was chillingly simple. Quote, "Because of everything I'd seen and gone through at that point." Bryana said the PTSD from having her life flash before her eyes still lingers to this day, with nightmares and paranoia. She told the jury that her PTSD used to be worse, that she used to scream in her sleep. But even now, she says that fear has not gone away. She described how every night when she gets home, she unlocks the door, kicks it open slightly, and then checks to make sure no one's inside. When asked about her most recent nightmare, she said it happened just a few days ago. Eventually, Bryana said she decided to take action against Diddy and hired a lawyer who sent, quote, "demand letters." Those are usually the precursor to a lawsuit. And Bryana said that it affected some of her friendships, including one of her closest friendships with a producer named Rob Holiday. She told the jury that one day, Rob Holiday FaceTimed her out of the blue, and that her heart sank when she recognized where he was, Diddy's backyard. She said Holiday told her he was calling on Diddy's behalf to discuss a possible settlement. Bryana said she declined. And after that, she said that she and Holiday never spoke again. A month or two later, she filed a $10 million lawsuit against Diddy. She said the lawyers suggested the amount. She told the jury it wasn't about the money, though. She said it was about justice. She wanted accountability for what had happened to her on that balcony. She even told the jury that she'd give the money back if it meant that moment on the balcony had never happened. Then it was the defense's turn for cross-examination, and Diddy's lawyer, Rachel Westmoreland, went right for the jugular, which in this case was Bryana's drug use. She asked her about every substance she admitted to using: marijuana, edibles, cocaine, ketamine, ecstasy, Molly, GHB, Percocet, and Vicodin. And Bryana described them one by one, noting how often she used them and how they made her feel. She admitted that some gave her confidence, others made her feel relaxed or disoriented, and some, like Percocet, she said made her feel sick. And then came a slang term, Cocoa Puff. It's a blunt laced with cocaine. Bryana explained what it was and said it was something that Cassie liked. And Bryana regularly helped Cassie get drugs. She recalled one instance where she delivered 100 pills to Cassie, admitting that she was nervous about the amount, but handed them all over anyway. She also arranged for dealers to deliver drugs directly to Cassie's apartment, but said she couldn't remember their names. And remember when I mentioned that Bryana was testifying under an immunity deal? This is probably a pretty good reason why. Drug dealing, and lots of it, like buying and handing over 100 pills, that's the kind of thing that can get you in a lot of trouble. Diddy's lawyer's line of questioning wasn't just about Bryana's drug habits, though. It was about her credibility. The defense wanted the jury to see a pattern where judgment, memory, and truth may have been clouded by drugs. There were multiple objections during the defense's cross-examination of Bryana. Diddy's lawyer even tried to suggest that Bryana and Cassie had been romantically involved and may have rehearsed what to say. Objection. Sustained. Diddy's lawyer then suggested Cassie didn't actually witness the balcony incident until Bryana told her what to remember. Objection. Sustained. Diddy's lawyer asked where Diddy got the knife that he allegedly threw at Cassie. Bryana said she couldn't remember. Diddy's lawyer asked if she was telling the truth about the incident. Objection. And once again, sustained. So these objections are like working. At this point, the judge stepped in. It was past 4 p.m., and he asked Diddy's lawyer how much longer she planned to go on with her cross-examination of Bryana. And the answer? I'm going to be a while. So the judge dismissed the jury until tomorrow. Day 16 was something else. The jury sat through dry but critical digital forensics and heard explosive, emotional testimony. But there are a few important questions. Can Bryana's memory be trusted? Was she motivated by money? A $10 million lawsuit? And does all of this really amount to racketeering? To help answer that question, I sat down with two men who know racketeering inside and out because they're former mobsters and they went to prison charged with racketeering. They have sat in the same seat that Diddy is in right now, facing down a jury and facing down RICO. Sammy the Bull Gravano and Michael Franzese joined me on my NewsNation show to talk about the government's case against Puff and whether they see RICO in this case or whether they don't. Here's my conversation with the former mobsters.
I know for a fact that you can be convicted and a racketeer without ever dangling anybody off a 17-story balcony. But if you do that, allegedly, and you later stand trial on a RICO charge, it is going to come up. And so it did today in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. On the stand was a fashion designer and longtime friend of Diddy's girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Her name is Bryana Bongolan, but she goes by Bryana. Bryana testified that she was staying at Cassie's LA apartment back in 2016 when Diddy burst through the door one night unannounced. She said he asked him to leave, and when he wouldn't, he followed her out to Cassie's balcony 17 stories up. Bryana told the jury today that Diddy grabbed her from behind, groped her, and then dangled her over the railing, yelling, "You know what the F you did." At the time, Bryana was 5'1" and about 100 pounds. She said she was dangling like that for about 15 seconds. She said then, when he was done, he threw her into the balcony furniture, badly injuring her. Photos were shown in court today of Bryana's injuries: a bruised up leg, cuts, bandaged back, her neck in a brace. She said she saw a chiropractor who asked her, "Who did this to you?" And she testified that she refused to answer that doctor. To this day, she said she suffers from PTSD and nightmares. And to this day, she insists that she has no idea what the F Diddy thought she did to deserve that. And that wasn't the only alleged Diddy outburst that put her in fear for her life, she said. Bryana testified that Diddy once told her at a photo shoot, quote, "I'm the devil and I could kill you." On another occasion, she testified that a coked-up Diddy supposedly threw a knife at Cassie while Bryana looked on in shock. The knife missed, but Bryana said that Cassie threw it right back at him. She added that Cassie missed too and that Diddy promptly left after that. Speaking of coke, Bryana admitted that drugs were pretty much the foundation of her friendship with Cassie, and she said that they partied together a lot with cocaine and ketamine and ecstasy and GHB. She said she sold a lot of drugs to Cassie, that might be the reason that she was granted immunity to testify. The third witness now, by my count, who has been given immunity to testify in this courtroom. For its part, the defense is accusing Bryana of making the whole thing up and changing her stories every time she tells them and looking for a payday. Bongolan is among dozens of Diddy accusers who have filed civil suits against him. And she filed one for $10 million. But on the stand, she said what she's really seeking is justice. With racketeering at the heart of this case, my first guests tonight know a lot about alleged criminal enterprises built around power, around fear, and exploitation. Michael Franzese is a former captain in New York's Colombo crime family who went on to serve 8 years for racketeering and extortion. Sammy the Bull Gravano is a former underboss of the Gambino family who later testified against John Gotti, by the way. And if you are wondering what retirement looks like for an ex-wise guy, here is Sammy the Bull at age 80, still throwing punches at the gym. Wow. That is impressive. Michael and Sammy, welcome back to the program, to both of you. And Sammy, dang, brother, how many times are you hitting the gym?
Every so often, a couple times a week.
Well, I'm sure that you were scary back in the day. To me, you still look scary today. So let me start here. And actually, Michael, I'm going to give the first one to you. The feds typically stack RICO cases, right? They line up the predicate acts, the underlying acts of crimes, and then they sort of lay them all out by, bringing witness after witness or pieces of evidence out. I want to ask you how damaging you think Briana was on the stand today, talking about being dangled over a 17th-story balcony.
Well, listen, it sounds terrible. Obviously, I'm not in the courtroom evaluating her as she gives her testimony. But look, all of this is adding up. It seems like these witnesses are corroborating one another, the same kind of behavior with all of them. I mean, it's very damaging. I also wanted to mention something. You think it's so out of the ordinary that, he's being charged in racketeering. The only thing out of the ordinary for me is that he's the only defendant. Normally you have multiple defendants. But remember, they use this against Wall Street. They use it against our ex-president in Georgia. They try to, they accused him of racketeering. So you give the government a statute, if they can expand upon it, they'll use it in every way that they can. But what's really puzzling here is it seems that most of these witnesses were given immunity. So some of them might be unindicted co-conspirators that would make up the enterprise along with Diddy. It's just that they agreed to cooperate and they're not indicted. I mean, that's my take on it so far.
That's a really good point, Sammy. Jump on that, because Briana was the third person by my count to be given immunity for her testimony. And each of those three that got up there, they all said they did not want to be there. They did not want to be a part of this. They weren't looking to put Diddy away. They just didn't want anything to do with him. Do you think that jurors see that? Do you think they see immunity as something that's really important?
No, I agree with Michael 100%. They all got immunity because they're cooperating. They're all part of the enterprise, and that's exactly what happens. When I cooperated, I was part of the enterprise, and I was cooperating, and nothing that I said could be used against me, and that's exactly what's happening here. Same exact thing. So they're all part of the enterprise.
Do you think that's going to amount to RICO in the jurors' minds? Are they going to see that as racketeering?
No, and I don't think they're going to see anything wrong with her dangling 17 stories off a building. I agree with Michael. I think it's horrible. It's disgusting, but I don't see it as a RICO thing. He was mad at her. They're not even saying why he was mad at her. Could have been an argument. How is that part of a criminal enterprise?
That's a good point. So, Michael, how about this? When it came time for cross-examination of Briana, I lost count. So did the NewsNation reporters who were in the courtroom taking notes. The number of times she said, "I don't remember." How powerful do you think that is for jurors who start to think, maybe your story isn't so strong if you just can't remember conveniently on cross?
Yeah, I think that goes against the witness. But again, I've been following this in the paper every day, and I just think the totality of these witnesses claiming the same type of behavior, they seem to be corroborating one another, and the behavior, at least as it's being brought out, is really kind of horrendous. I mean, I think the most damaging thing that the jurors are going to remember They saw this video with Cassie, and so they know that he's very capable of this behavior. I think the attorney Garagos had to get up there and say, look, that was a bad act, but it was more of a domestic violence thing. It wasn't RICO. So it's really going to depend on how capable or how competent the summation is by Garagos with the RICO. That's what it's going to come down to. Hey, he did some despicable things, but it's not racketeering. And if he can convince the jury of that, and then they have a shot. Other than that, I think it's a tough case. They were talking a lot about him taking the stand. The only time you take the stand is when you're desperate. Any attorney will tell you, you never take the stand unless, hey, we got a bad case here. You may as well go up there and try to help yourself. Normally, you don't want to take the stand.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Listen, I think we all know by this point that Diddy has a bit of a God complex, and if not a God complex, a king complex, and a hair trigger anger management problem. Sammy, because of that, do you think it is the dumbest idea ever if Diddy took the stand? Because it would be real easy for those feds to get under his skin real fast.
Yeah, I agree. You never take the stand in your case. It's like Michael said, as the last resort, your case is dead. You try to revive it and take the stand, but it would be a bad move. But I don't think he has to do that. I'm becoming more and more. I understand the RICO law. I saw a lot of people it was used against. I don't understand how they're using it in this case. What's the enterprise?
Okay, I'll give you an example. All right, I'll give you an example. The enterprise is that he's the CEO at the top of Bad Boy Records, and he allegedly uses all of his staff members, his chief of staff, Christina Coram, his bodyguard, D-Rock, and the other bodyguards to carry out a lot of these crimes, like this one is alleged. A hotel worker said he was paid $100,000 in cash in a paper bag to make some video of a felony assault go away, which you could say is obstruction of justice. So there's Diddy allegedly using his staff because they, according to the witness, were involved in the whole setup and planning of this, the non-disclosure agreement he had to sign. Michael, jump in on that. Do you see that as evidence of obstruction of justice, one of the predicate acts to prove RICO?
Yes, but there again, I think the challenge here is the lawyer is going to get up and say, well, where's the racketeering enterprise? An enterprise is one person all of a sudden. I think he's going to have to say that these other people were unindicted co-conspirators, or maybe he won't use that word, but he's going to have to say that these other people helped him carry out this pattern of racketeering that caused all of this stuff. Because to me, it doesn't make sense to have one person, be indicted for RICO and saying that he's the criminal enterprise. Normally, the criminal enterprise is made up of a number of people. Every one of my cases was that way, and I had 3 of them. And every case that I've known, against all of my former associates, there was always a number of people that were part of the enterprise.
Yeah, we still have a couple to go. We haven't heard from D-Rock, and we haven't heard from the chief of staff either, Christina Coram. So that still could be to come. So that means you guys have to come back. Michael Franzese and Sammy the Bull Gravano, thank you both so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Hey, everybody, you can catch Sammy on his podcast, Our Thing with Sammy the Bull, and Michael on his podcast, Sit Down with Michael Franzese.
No matter how this trial ends, the government's message is clear. They're treating Sean Diddy Combs the same way they'd treat a crime boss. And tomorrow, I'm sure we'll see more of that. The cross-examination of Bonner resumes tomorrow, and it is expected to last at least another day. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. I'm Ashleigh Banfield. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.